They can take his voice, his facial features, and they've got the valuetainment.Russian, okay? And so he will speak perfect Russian. His lips look like in Russian, except for he doesn't speak Russian, okay? Wow. And I think he did something in Italian, he did it in Russian, he did it in Spanish, and of course his in English. And so that's a beautiful tool that you can use because you can communicate in other languages to other people to get your content out to help serve them.
Welcome to the Execs.Coach podcast. Are you a business leader or someone with aspirations of improving your leadership skills? If you're looking to uncover what it takes to be a successful leader in today's environment, listening to the Execs.Coach podcast will be well worth the investment of your time. Now, let's jump into the conversation with Executive Coach Ed Rankin and serial entrepreneur Doug Parker.
All right, welcome back to the Execs.Coach podcast. I'm Doug Parker.
And I'm Ed Rankin.
And we are going to talk about some great topics today. I think we're on episode number 7 already. It's hard to believe, but today we're going to talk about technology advancements and AI. That's kind of a trigger word nowadays. Everybody's talking about AI and artificial intelligence, but Ed, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's coming really fast, Doug, and one of the things that I tell my fellow coaches is if you're not incorporating this into your practice, you're probably going to find yourself in behind. Mm-hmm. And so I think for now, for those that are in leadership development, whether you're in corporations or you're in a consulting role like me, I think that you need to kind of take a hard look at what's happening out there with the technology and see what you can do to use it to help your clients.
Yeah, so I was doing some research and it kind of was, somehow I got on the train of like teaching and those types of things. And it talks about how AI really probably is not going to necessarily replace teachers or replace coaching, anything like that. But what it's going to do is it's going to give you better technological information quicker, which will allow you to spend more time with the actual students. So that was pretty interesting about how you get more information, and people are always afraid about jobs being eliminated. Yeah, exactly. And that's a legit concern. I mean, there was we'll reference it a little bit later, but Patrick Bet-David, a buddy of mine, did a deal the other day, a podcast. And he talked about how everything is changing, but he kind of went over these, like the Industrial Revolution and these different changes and how many jobs that it eliminated, but then how many jobs it created. So we don't always know kind of what it's going to create, but it can make people more efficient, make them be able to get more accomplished in a shorter period of time, and just better data quicker.
Yeah, Doug, I'm reminded that my mother grew up in a small town in Carthage, North Carolina, and there was a buggy factory in Carthage, North Carolina, and when the horseless carriage came along, the car. People in Carthage were real concerned about what was going to happen to the economy because of, they thought, well, we're not going to be able to sell buggies anymore, horse-drawn buggies, what we're going to do. And of course, we all know that led to a big boom in auto manufacturing and other things. So you said it just perfectly. We don't know what's going to be happening or where the jobs are going to be coming from, but I do think that most of the advances in technology over our the human history have led to bigger, greater things, more productivity, more opportunities for us, for human beings. So,
sure. Yeah. Well, and those that can't adapt become extinct. So yes, the dinosaurs, the biggest, baddest animals ever on the planet, they're not here anymore. They just couldn't adapt, or something happened, and things change. So the buggy factory, did those people find something else to do? I don't know. But would we prefer to still be stuck in the days of a horse-drawn carriage? Probably not.
Well, they probably got into the auto repair business.
Absolutely. Well, and there's all types of things that just change. With change, change occurs, and without change, nothing changes. So it's just kind of part of the process. In your research, were there any other things that kind of stood out to you?
Well, I think, these are things I've sort of been subtly aware of for a while, but they're sort of coming along so fast that, one of the things now I think, I've used some AI tools in my practice, and what it's helping me to do is to help me understand, if you look across the platform of clients that I work with, I can see trends in my client base. So I can look and see, well, gosh, of the last 20 coaching calls I've had, this particular issue has been a common theme for all of my clients. So then I know I need to go dig in deeper into that. So when I come back to my client base, I've got some maybe some more helpful, more useful, more current information that I can share with them.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think they don't necessarily think that they're dealing with AI, or maybe it's just something they're not going to deal with. but it's real interesting. I saw somebody with an iPhone the other day, and it was one that you had to put your finger on for the fingerprint deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember when that came out, it was like the coolest technology. I was like, oh man, just put your fingerprint on, that's even cooler. But there's these studies, and one of them was this analytics, insight.net had a great article, and it was talking about how you may not realize it, but you're using technological or AI technology all the time, whether it's integration with Facebook, Google, all these big companies, Amazon, facial recognition. There are so many things that, it's kind of like watching the old Mission Impossible Tom Cruise movies, and you would see how they would do these facial recognition scans, and it seemed like so cutting edge, and that's something at the Pentagon. And now it's on your phone. You just go boop, and it just automatically opens up, and you don't even think about it.
Yeah, and so for right now, if I know that most of my clients are the AI technology I use will actually tell me the majority of your clients or many of your clients are concerned about this issue. It then will give me direct links to learning tools that I can send to my clients. And look, I know this is something that we've been discussing. Take a look at this and see and let's talk about it next time we meet. Mm-hmm. So it's that kind of, I think what it's helping coaching and how it has helped me coaching is helping coaches to be more, as you said earlier, faster and respond more directly to the issues that the clients are dealing with more directly.
Yeah, that's great. And one of the other things that we had kind of talked about is we on one of our last episodes we kind of used the technology you had that AI to record it and then to try to give us some feedback. Now, one of the things we didn't realize is that we did it through a Zoom call and we just kind of had it on there, and because it was both of us on the same recording, it kind of stepped on top of it, so it didn't give us the desired outcome there. But we had talked about kind of adapting, and so the way to figure stuff out, if you're not familiar with AI, most people aren't, okay? We're not all experts in this stuff. You just try stuff, and then if it doesn't work, well, you try something different. So we had talked about, well, maybe you set up 2 laptops and do a Zoom, and then we decided, you know what, there's probably a little too many moving parts for what we're doing here, but that's how you figure stuff out as an entrepreneur, which is kind of where I come from. You just figure stuff out, and there's some beauty to that. People that can figure stuff out, it gives them some real strengths. Most people don't like to feel incompetent, and so they don't want to just figure out. They want to know what they're doing prior to doing it. That's a natural tendency to have. Where a guy like me, people ask me something all the time, and I'll be like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. And then that's my response is, we'll figure it out, because I'm very confident that we will figure it out at some point. But we just got to start moving, learn from those mistakes, figure out, make a plan, go execute. When that doesn't work, adapt a little bit and figure out where do you go from there. So that's, I think, an important thing, and we try to do that in this very podcast to get some technology, some AI in there. And it hadn't worked out just yet what we wanted to do, but we're going to keep trying on it.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, one of the things I think that the concept of gamification has been around quite a bit, mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that coaching can do, or technology can do with coaching, is to bring some of those elements of gamification back into the coaching so that it can be more fun. Mm-hmm. And so learning, I think the technology is helping us create more opportunities for learning, but opportunities for learning that are enjoyable and pleasant for the individual, because things can be tailored. Mm-hmm. Coaching really is about tailoring individual development for people. So, and instead of bringing groups of people together for a classroom setting, maybe for a weekend class or something, then you would look at the individual's developmental needs and you provide a learning opportunity for that person based on what their individual needs are.
Yeah.
So all of this is helping us become more precise, more efficient, more cost effective because of the efficiency and the precision.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and you just triggered my mind a minute ago. So there's a book called The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack, and it talks about this company in Springfield, Missouri. It's Springfield Remanufacturing Corporation, and they have done an excellent job on gamifying stuff. And it gave everybody responsibilities all the way down to toilet paper and hand towels, and just everybody having a role, a responsibility, a budget. But they gamified it, and because it created this personal responsibility and accountability, it was amazing. I need to follow back up with them and just kind of see how things are going. I went out and did kind of a backstage rock star pass that we had with Inc. magazine a while back, and it was really cool to talk to the CEO and then the different companies, because they've spun out many companies, like dozens of companies, out of that organization by gamification. So it made me think about that. We'll put that in the show notes, that a link to the book, The Great Game of Business, but by Jack Stack. But with that being said, there's a couple of other things that kind of stood out to me when it comes to AI. There was a great website called, it was insead.edu, and it talks about all these different ways that they're doing education. And the additional time that you save, you can use for other stuff, right? So ChatGPT, we used it for part of this in kind of preparation, and it's amazing. I didn't even know you could do this, but one of the guys here in the office was telling me how he was taking spreadsheets and uploading them into ChatGPT. And I don't even know exactly sure how he did that, and it was giving him feedback from just uploading it, or he was uploading data from a Word document and asking him to put that into a spreadsheet.
Wow.
And I don't even know how he did it, but it was like, I didn't even know it could do that. It's amazing. Just some of the technology that's out there that you can use for educating yourself, educating others, and in the coaching world. So it's super exciting stuff for sure.
Well, and I think one of the things that their audience, if they're not aware of it, what coaching really is an individualized learning experience. It really is about learning different behaviors, learning about oneself, learning about how oneself is perceived by other people, learning how an individual can modify their behavior based on circumstances where they're in. And this may seem kind of simple, but for some folks it's really a challenge to be able to become more self-aware, more aware of how they're impacting other people in the moment, being able to make changes there. So there's teaching and learning is a big part of a coaching experience.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, I am really excited about AI. I don't know what it's going to hold for the future. There will be jobs that get eliminated, but then they'll have other opportunities. And we talked about this right before the show today. There's people out there that look for ways to get stuff done, and there's people that kind of look for ways to make an excuse. So I find that people that get stuff done, well, they find a way, and the people that don't want to get stuff done, they find an excuse. And AI can be both of those. It can be an opportunity to find a way to get something done, or it can find a way to somebody to say an excuse that their job got cut. At the end of the day, you just have to keep your eye focused on the prize, keep going after it, stay focused, and utilize that tool to the best of your ability. It's like a hammer. You can use it to hammer in nails, and everything to a hammer looks like a nail. But there's also other bad things you can do with a hammer, and it's really just how you use the actual tool that makes a difference.
No doubt, yeah. Yeah, and actually, it seems like one of the roles that's emerging because of AI is how to use AI, right? I mean, the things we've talked about today so far, really, there within each of those subspecialty categories, there's opportunities for people to teach others how to use AI in those areas. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think that's something that we'll have to do a little more research on is figuring out how do we use these tools? What other tools are out there? Everybody's heard of ChatGPT, and it's the ChatGPT 4 now, and then there's Gemini, I think, with Google, and then now I'm going to tell myself here a little bit. This is a little frustrating for me. There's some kind of new AI that is in Facebook. Like, I just want to search for stuff. I just want to search for normal stuff in there, and it sends me on some kind of wild goose chase trying to make it a little bit more sophisticated than I really want it to be. So I don't know what that's all about. Maybe it's just my ignorance on the situation, or maybe they're just developing it still. But on Facebook, that one's kind of frustrated me. But one of the cool things I found on Facebook the other day is you can now put your pictures on there, and you start to write stuff out, and then it asks you, do you want to modify that with AI? And then it'll go in and say, do you want it to be more motivational? Do you want it to be more funny? Do you want it to be more precise? And then it will turn around and rewrite whatever your post is in that way based upon the pictures that it sees. So that's kind of cool, and I've done a couple of those, and sometimes I'm like, nah, that doesn't sound like me. I'm not going to do that. That's a little too much. And then other times it's like, oh, you know what? That actually helps convey the message I was looking to convey, and it sounds kind of like what I would say. And so I've used that in those capacities. So that's just a real practical use of not necessarily for business, but something that I posted on Facebook that the AI was really kind of cool.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty neat stuff. So lots of information, that related to AI, and I'm sure we're just barely scratching the surface here. Were there any other kind of highlights of things you kind of wanted to hit?
Well, I think there's a lot about security now and confidentiality, and I think there's some changes that will be coming. I think actually there are ways to take the tools out there and enhance confidentiality and enhance privacy. So I think those are coming today. If you're using AI tools on Zoom or another application, you're telling the other person knows it's being recorded. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes I have a little concern that my clients might be hesitant to be as candid or honest with me when our coaching session is being recorded. Mm-hmm. So I always give them the option. I tell them why we're recording it, give them the option of saying yes or no to the recording, that they understand what I'm going to be doing with the information. So typically, with the AI feedback that we receive from the session, I'll send the client a copy of the discussion so they get more comfortable and understand what we're doing with it all.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the other things that I have seen is like this deep fake, right? Yeah. And that's got to be a big concern for everybody in AI. And some of it is kind of cool because it's like kind of meme type stuff. It's just kind of funny stuff that's not real serious, and it'll be in somebody's voice that sounds serious, but it's not really them saying it. But I have caught on my feed a couple of times where it's like it seems like it's real, like it's a deep fake. It seems like it's real. It seems like it's that information, and I'm like, man, I know that person. Not that I know him personally, but I've heard Joe Rogan, for instance. I've heard him a lot, and I'm like, that is not something consistent with what I think he would say. And then I realize 2 or 3 out of the last 5 things that I've kind of flipped through on Instagram is like deep fake stuff. Oh, wow. And it's kind of crazy how they can take their face and then they're making their lips move. That was another thing on the Patrick Bet-David, and it wasn't a podcast. It was actually just a live recording that he did. And he was talking about how they can take his voice, his facial features, and they've got the valuetainment.Russian, okay? And so he will speak perfect Russian. Wow. His lips look like in Russian, except for he doesn't speak Russian, okay? Wow. And I think he did something in Italian, he did it in Russian, he did it in Spanish, wow. And of course his in English. And so that's a beautiful tool that you can use because you can communicate in other languages to other people to get your content out to help serve them. The other side of it, though, is they can use literally your own words against you and take your voice tone, exactly how you speak, where you put voice inflection, and it shows your lips, and it doesn't look like it's a dubbed over movie like from the 60s or 70s, in the kung fu movies or whatever. It's like super real. So that's a concern about security, kind of a different deal, but that's still a pretty significant concern.
You just caused me to think. You and I were talking earlier. I was asked to consider working with a person in Israel. Mm-hmm. He was working for an Israeli company, but this individual was actually working in the U.S. primarily, but his native language is Hebrew, not English. And so the concern was, since I didn't speak Hebrew, would some of the things that in English and Hebrew, particularly around the emotional issues, would we be able to have a heart-to-heart relationship, as a coach and client? And so I'm just thinking, maybe some of this technology could aid in that situation,
Hey, and I don't know what exact software or whatever that Pat was using for his stuff, but I'll reach out to him and get it to you because to that point, it could really be a situation where, it translates. It's amazing how much faster and more effective that it can translate this stuff. Now, the other side of the AI is, when I've loaded some stuff into ChatGPT, sometimes it comes up with information. It's like, man, this is unbelievable. How does it know? I put some information in there on network marketing and from the perspective of one of the leaders in one of the organizations I'm part of, and I'm going through it, and it's like somehow or another it has deducted out. These are things that this guy would actually say. I've heard him say them before. Now, I don't know that it was ever out there, the content was ever out there, so if it grabbed it from somewhere, or it just had enough information on network marketing and leaders that it was able to kind of deduct it down to this. It was amazing. And then sometimes it'll spit out some information that's like, I don't know about that. Sometimes it spits out just information that's not always necessarily 100% true, right? And so I can't remember the person I was listening to the other day, but they basically said that you have to go in and verify. It was Jordan Peterson. You have to go in and verify all of your references, okay? Because what it'll do is it will sometimes, not necessarily ChatGPT, but just AI in general, it will make up references, okay, that don't exist. Oh, wow. So if you go back in and look up that reference, to where it's at, it doesn't even exist sometimes. So always make sure, like, if you're referencing something. So this is for the kids. If y'all are out there listening and you're in school and you reference something, because you got to reference stuff when you're writing out your stuff, make sure to actually check your references and go back in and verify that information. But I think he was saying that it kind of has the intelligence of an undergrad student, that it can write that information, but at the PhD level, that, you know, it's not quite there yet. So you still got to go back in and verify everything, which is what, in that scenario, if you've got undergrads doing your work for you in the PhD studies, then you got to make sure that you still verify all of their work, right, to make sure it's all correct. So anyway, tons of information out there. Again, we just scratched the surface, but I'm excited about it for sure. And just even in this conversation, I've pulled out 2 or 3 things that I'm going to work on and just go for my own business and for this podcast. I know you got a couple things you've pulled out as well, so it's and that's just us chatting for 15, 20 minutes here.
You know, I sometimes wonder, how I would have performed in school differently in universities if I'd had AI tools to work with. I think, I teach a graduate course in executive and leadership coaching at Southern Methodist University here in the Dallas area, and they have a real strong policy on AI usage. But I wonder sometimes if some of the work I get from my students, if it was actually their generated or if it's something from AI.
Well, I saw something the other day too, that there is AI that will go in and analyze papers of students to see if it looks like it's AI generated. Now, how that works, I don't know. But
I think SMU has a tool that the faculty can use to do that.
Yeah, it's like AI on AI crime. It's like, it's like they're getting after each other there, and who knows? I mean, it's amazing, just the technology that's out there and what's to come. But I think it's definitely going to be a tool that'll help serve. And as long as the machines don't take over and rule the world and get out of control, I think it'll be.
Well, that's a concern. Elon Musk has expressed concerns there. But because one of the things one of the things that's becoming more popular in coaching is group coaching, team coaching, and so. There are some tools there now, and it's kind of connected to gaming and some other things, but augmented reality, where you can actually create some scenarios with a team, a group of people, where they're playing in an augmented reality based on AI. And so the learning, imagine how powerful that can be. But I think, but back to your point earlier, I think it's real important. It's like it's IT like always. It's garbage in, garbage out. So whatever the inputs are is going to determine what your outputs are going to be.
Yep.
So and I think understanding where the inputs are coming from is important.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned Elon a minute ago. So just a few months ago, there was a time where Elon put something out, or there was something that was released, I think, with Kamala Harris, and it was like a meme with her voice, kind of like the deepfake stuff I was talking about, but it was very obviously a meme. And then Gavin Newsom said, we're going to do a law, and I'm going to sign it into law, and you can't do it. And then Elon responds back on X. He says basically that it's freedom of speech whenever it's just a meme, whenever it's something that is obviously fake, and he quoted some law that wasn't really the law. But anyway, he was just throwing some baloney out there, kind of being funny. But at the same time, it's. So when is it funny? When is it not funny? Who is it funny to? Who is it not funny to? What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? And then there's always the situation, in business or in life, where in America, anybody can sue anybody anytime they want to, okay? And you just got to figure out a way to kind of process through that. And so always be careful about what you're putting out there, because we're not giving legal advice here, but it can happen for sure where somebody can sue somebody.
Yeah, one of the things that's probably happening already and probably will become even more important is that as AI becomes more prolific, is that we become we get smarter ourselves at evaluating its output. And like you pointed out several things already where the AI produced information that you knew was not factually correct. So I think that probably behooves all of us to be a little on guard for any information that we see now, where that's coming, because a lot of it probably is AI generated.
Yeah, I get all excited. My wife always kind of wears me out about, I love buying that as seen on TV stuff, you know what I mean? It just looks like, man, it looks like it can really do the job it says it can do, right? And then, on all these online things, you see so much even more of that. And then you'll see, and Joe Rogan's talking about this, but how they'll say it'll be his voice, maybe not his face, but they've got his voice to where it looks like he's pitching it. It doesn't say it's Joe Rogan, but it's his voice and you can hear it. And so, there's so many things out there that, I think everything is going to change. I mean, in some of my business over the years, I've had professional athletes or professional announcers, different people that have been spokespeople for me. Yeah. Now, they will say their name and that's part of the deal. But how many people or companies will use somebody's voice now that is not exactly their voice, but it's a recording of their voice, and they won't say it's them, but it has enough recognition that someone might use that. And what laws could be associated with that, or what could that look like? I know that music, has royalties associated with it, correct. But you can hear stuff all the time where they will take a song and you know what it is, and it's like the Ghostbusters song by Ray Parker Jr. from the 80s, and they'll do some kind of a slight twist on it where it's not the same song, but the beat sounds the same, and you know what it reminds you of. And so I think they're going to do that with voices also, and whether you can get away with that or not, I don't know. I don't know what the law is currently.
I've noticed some of that myself recently, like in advertisements and on radio particularly, where the voice sounds vague, oddly familiar, but it's not quite. It's not that person, but it's really close.
Yeah, and I think they could probably say it, or do it and just not, like for instance, use Joe Rogan's voice, but just not say it's Joe Rogan, and it's just a random voiceover. Can you get away with that? I don't know. I mean, that's something that will be probably left up to the courts at some point. But anyway, just one of the things of AI, and kind of the last thing I'll throw out there is they've got this AI technology, and this is just kind of fun stuff, where they will take, I saw it the other day, where they took just a Dr. Pepper, and then they made a country song with Dr. Pepper in it. And it wrote this whole song regarding, Dr. Pepper and a country song. That was kind of funny, but I heard that the Beatles, that Paul McCartney was going to he was going to release some songs that had John Lennon in it and use deep fake John Lennon songs that John Lennon wrote that had never been recorded yet. So somehow integrate that into the Beatles and re-record and do a new album. I heard that. So
I heard about that.
That would be an amazing scenario. Someone that has long passed away from 40 years ago, and bringing them back to life in the studio with AI. That could be pretty interesting.
It's going to happen. I mean, it's happening. Yeah, I think one thing that we haven't talked about yet, that's kind of connected to coaching, is that the tools now can actually, one of the challenges that all my clients have really is feedback. So, we'll have a conversation about a behavior that they want to change. We'll put a plan in place and develop some alternative behaviors. They'll agree to do that. Then they're off to the workplace and they're trying to implement these behaviors. Well, I'm not there, so I can't watch and observe. But some of these tools actually now, so for example, there are smartphone-based AI tools that can, with a recording, so you could have an individual record themselves doing something differently and have AI analyze that. So this is so the feedback, I think, probably one of the biggest impacts that we haven't seen yet, but I think it's coming for coaching, is helping clients get real-time feedback in the work environment while they're in their process of trying to change some of their behaviors.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. And while you were talking, my mind kind of went on a little bit of a thought process. These phones are so powerful. I was thinking about recording stuff, and I remember I used to have this little voice recorder thing that I would use. And then you got a calculator, and then you got a camera, and now you've got a phone that has all that stuff built into it. But I'm sure there will be apps that will come out, or maybe are already out, to your point, that can even video it, record it, give you live feedback of how did that interaction go. And all just self-contained because it can record it. It can
it's some of that's there now. There's some smartphone-based applications that will do some of that for you.
It's amazing. Yeah, some of this technology, AI. This will be the last thing that I kind of add to the conversation. But I saw somebody sent me something through LinkedIn the other day, and it just had Doug, whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, but I can tell this is like just a canned deal that just happens to put Doug as my name in there. But I remember about 20 years ago, whenever some of these email campaigns came out, and it was the coolest thing ever that you could put somebody's name, like their actual name in there, and you could tie it all together and maybe put, a couple of little nuggets of information throughout the conversation that was specific to them. And that was like, cutting edge, and to an extent, that's kind of artificial intelligence. I mean, it's marrying a spreadsheet with like a Word document and then emailing it all out and doing an automated read to thousands of people. And it's gone from being that basic that we're talking about, basically reviving the dead and doing songs, just in a couple of decades. So who knows 3 or 4 or 5 years from now where it's going to be, but there's no doubt about it. AI is AI revolution. That was the Patrick Bet-David, the title of his deal. There is a revolution coming for sure.
It's coming, and the thing that's underneath all this that people aren't probably thinking about is this huge amount of data capture that we're doing now. Mm-hmm. So all these, I don't know, I won't get the dates exactly right, but I've been told I do some work with a major commercial construction company that's one of the largest builders of data centers in the United States. And they're terribly busy now because, say for like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency requires huge amounts of data storage. And so these data centers are going up all over the place. Texas is a very popular place because of our low energy costs. These facilities are just huge users of electricity. I mean, tons of electricity. That whole the data that's out there, the more data points you have about an individual, really the better you are at predicting their behavior. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's something that's going to be coming where you're going to see that maybe more used by corporations in looking at their executive behaviors. So if you know enough about an individual, you can pretty much predict what they will do given a certain situation. And that's AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, the data points, gathering information. In several of my business over the years, it's the data, and you take back that data. It's raw, but then you run it through a system. You figure out what's going on with it. You figure out how you can utilize that to help people and accomplish their goals. And so with coaching, I mean that's no different. I mean that's the things that you're doing where you're going through, you're gathering data from them. And you've got your experiences, and you're kind of recompiling it, and then presenting it to them, and letting them kind of figure out a game plan of how to go in and execute. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, lots of good information here. That's kind of a wrap for me. I don't have anything else to add. Is there anything else you had?
I think we're good. We think we covered the bases pretty well, Doug.
I mean, we scratched the surface, but here we are at the Execs.Coach podcast. I'm Doug Parker.
I'm Ed Rankin.
And we're going to wrap it up on this episode. See everybody next time.